Okay. Let's call it to order. City Clerk.
This is a roll call for the City Council and the Power and Financing Authority and Successor Agency. Council Member Authority Member Christ.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Mann.
Present.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chairman Smith.
Here.
Mayor Chairman Paris.
Here.
We have a quorum.
You want to do the Housing Authority too?
Yes, sir. This is the roll call for the Housing Authority.
You want me
Authority
to call
Member.
You want me to call it to order
Okay,
officially?
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
so as Vice Chairman of the Housing Authority, I'll call it to order now.
Agency Director, Authority Member Christ.
Present.
Harvey. Mann.
Present.
Zetto.
Here.
Vice Chairman Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight we have Pastor Shane Eidelman from Westside Christian Fellowship doing the invocation.
Mayor and council members, thank you for this opportunity to represent Westside Christian. Let's take a moment and seek God for direction. Lord, we give you this council meeting. Lord, we ask for wisdom. We ask for discernment. Lord, as decisions are made, we want to put you first and biblical principles first as a foundation on which this community is built. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Deputy Mayor, you want to do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, tonight we have a presentation, well, several of them. And Captain Johnson, you're going to help me with that? Is that right? Too many wires on me, you know. Do you want to do it? Sure. Okay, great.
Usually when I'm standing before you, it's to recognize some of the law enforcement personnel assigned to Lancaster Station. But tonight is a little different, and it's probably one of the most exciting presentations I've been able to do. For one group, we did it last week at the Board of Supervisors, and for the other, it'll be the first for me in this capacity. And what it is, we're recognizing members of the community. There were two incidents that have occurred out here in the last several months that just goes to show you how much this community wants to take back their community, make it what it is, a great, outstanding place to live, to work, and to play. And with that, let me go ahead and ask Gail Smith. Are you here? Yes, she is. My favorite grandmother. Come on up. Gail Smith, Gilbert Ibarra, Mario Barrera, and Tyrone Beers. Or Tyson Beers. I'm sorry about that, Tyson. We recognized these individuals last week at the Board of Supervisors, and some of you may remember reading about it. But back in January 31st of this year, one of our deputies got involved in an altercation while she was trying to detain an individual. And I'm not going to get into specifics because the trial is still pending. But while she tried to detain him, an altercation occurred, and he attacked her, and it turned into a fight for her life. She was fighting for her weapon, and it was a long, drawn-out fight. And as soon as these individuals saw what was going on, they became engaged. And Gail Smith was one of the first to jump on the suspect without hesitation or fear for her own safety, jumped on the suspect, wrapped her arm around him, and tried to pull him away. And soon after, Gilbert, Mario, and Tyson also joined in helping control this suspect. We were able to collectively take the suspect off Deputy Bozier. We were able to take him into custody and arrest him. But without their assistance, who knows what the outcome would have been. So I'd like to again publicly recognize and thank you. We greatly appreciate you coming to her aid. And for that, we have some commendations on behalf of the Sheriff's Department and also from the City of Lancaster. And I'll just read the one from the Sheriff's Department. In recognition of your actions on January 31st, 2012, you came to the aid of a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy who was in a fight for her life with a battery suspect. Realizing the deputy was struggling to maintain control of her duty weapon, you disregarded your own safety and came to her aid. The men and women of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department join me in saluting you. Your brave and unselfish acts most assuredly saved the life of a deputy, and for that we are forever grateful. Thank you very much. Gail? Gilbert?
So much. No, stay here. We got to get some pictures. And Mario's a public defender, too, and quite an accomplished one also, which gives, I think, is an indication that, you know, we're all in this together.
I'm with the alternate public defenders now.
Oh, are you? So he got advanced. Actually, Mario is one of the better trial attorneys over there, and he's also coached some of the mock trial teams, and so I'm really glad to see her. This really is what's happening in Lancaster. The reason our crime rate is dropping like a stone is because it's all of us together, and we're all jumping in, and I guess we're all just sending the message. This is our city, and it's really dangerous to mess with it. That's right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Everybody came. That's great.
Hey, thank you.
We good?
Pass the smile.
Now, if my wife is doing that, we'd be here 10 minutes. You know?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Now for the second one, most of you may have remembered it got a lot of publicity. It was back in September 27th of 2011 where there was a robbery at the Walmart parking lot where an elderly lady's purse was stolen by a suspect who had a screwdriver. What made this amazing is that these individuals, well actually, can I call you all up? Samuel Nunez, Kim Gaskin, Alejandro Arias, Robert Norton, and Blue Tracy.
Okay, you're Sam? Hey, Sam. It's nice to see you. Nice to see you. Okay. Let me get your names. What was your name?
Thank you. Immediately after the robbery occurred, Samuel Nunez, Sam, can you raise your hand so everybody can see who you are? Immediately went to apprehend the suspect, even though the suspect had a screwdriver. The suspect turned on Samuel, stabbed Samuel with the screwdriver, and at that point, Kim, Robert, Alejandro, and Blue, they saw that he was in distress, went after the suspect as well, tried to apprehend him. He got away again, and then it was Blue, right? Blue followed him in his car, helped us track him down to finally take the suspect into custody. So again, it goes to show you that this community has taken it back, without question. Even a suspect who's armed with a weapon, none of these individuals cared. They were going to make sure that suspect ended up in custody. I'll tell you, I once was asked what my number one goal was when I took command of Lancaster Station. I said, it's to make Lancaster the safest city in America. And somebody told me, don't set your goals too high. And I responded, don't set your goals so low. Because us alone, it's difficult. But us, with you, it can be done, and it is being done. So again, congratulations. Thanks for coming to us and helping us on this. And again, the suspect's in custody because of the community engagement, and that's what we need. And again, I'm so proud to be here and to be able to give you these certificates. On behalf of the Sheriff's Department, I'll read it again. In recognition of your heroic actions on September 27th, 2011, you came to the aid of a woman who had just been robbed by an armed suspect. You confronted the suspect and a fight ensued. During that time, the suspect started stabbing Samuel. The rest of you came to Samuel's aid and were able to stop the suspect and disarm him. Blue followed the fleeing vehicle and notified the deputies of the location where the suspect was captured. Your brave actions led to the arrest of a dangerous criminal. The men and women of Los Angeles County join me in saluting you for your commitment and sacrifice in coming to the aid of your fellow citizen. So again, congratulations and thank you so much. Blue.
Thank you. I want you guys to pay attention to these certificates compared to our certificates. We have to talk to the printer.
They deserve a huge round of applause.
Good. Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Now, Bob, before you leave, make certain you tell the staff where they can get those done, okay? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the consent calendars consist of items of routine business for which minimal or no discussion or special presentation is contemplated or required. These items may be acted upon as a whole with one motion, a second, and a single vote. If you desire to speak on an item or items in the consent calendar, you may fill out one speaker card for the consent calendar. You will be given 3 minutes to address your concerns before the agency or council takes action on the consent calendar. All speaker cards must be filled out and submitted prior to the consent calendar being called. This same rule applies if you wish to speak on other items on the agenda and non-agendized items at the end of the meeting. Following this process will allow us to conduct a timely and orderly meeting. City Manager, anything to be removed?
No, sir.
At this time, I'm turning the meeting over to Vice Chairman Smith for the Housing Authority.
We have HM1, the minutes. There are no speaker cards. Do I hear any motions or any discussion?
Move to approve HM1.
Here a second.
I'll second that.
Call for a vote. Passes unanimously, and I'll pass the gavel back over to the mayor.
Thank you. Now the staff report on Power Authority action, new business 1.
Mayor and City Council, attached for your review and approval is an agreement between InStream Energy Systems and the City of Lancaster Power Authority, which is a power purchase agreement to purchase and then the eventual sale of power generated by InStream Energy. This is another example of a power purchase agreement that for a number of local companies we've come to you with. And just to step back a little bit to talk about how we get to this point, because we have seen a number of them. Typically it starts with a memorandum of understanding that identifies what the company wants to do. We work with that company to identify if their process is real, if their project is real. From that point, once we've identified that, we then come with a master power purchase agreement that allows us to even deepen that relationship and look for potential off-takers and work with them in the actual development of the project. The last stage of this is an implementation agreement, of which we identify price, terms, and other attributes associated with the project. So this is, in a lot of the projects we're doing, this is kind of the second phase that we see of these projects. And we've had a number of these agreements come before you, so I wanted to clarify that. The agreement before you today is an agreement between InStream Energy and BAE Systems, which is a hydrokinetic turbine. And for those of you, that's a fancy way of saying a propeller that is submerged under moving water. As the water passes by this turbine, it spins that propeller or blade, which then generates electricity. Obviously a renewable energy source because that water column is constantly moving, and in essence the company is capturing that kinetic energy through that water. The company's approached us in an effort. One is that we have an asset within our valley called the California Aqueduct to access that portion of the column of water to generate the electricity and use the Lancaster Power Authority as a means to sell that electricity to an off-taker. We've had some initial success in testing that water column to identify that it does generate electricity on a number of different locations along the aqueduct, and we are working now with the Department of Water Resources to actually place that system in the water column. This has been proved before. The project works. It's established in Canada, and of course BAE Systems is a European company who's working not only in the defense industry, but they're branching out into the renewable energy program. So although this is a experimental project, it is tested, it is operational, it will be experimental from the California standpoint. There is no other system like this in place. The agreement before you today sets out that we will be working with InStream and BAE to assist them in getting access to the California Aqueduct and assist them in identifying a legitimate and reasonable off-taker for the purchase of the energy. Again, at this point, they intend to deploy in the California Aqueduct, and although we're not certain to the outcome of this, it is exciting that we are, again, a location where a company can come and test, develop, and create new ideas for the development of energy, not only in our valley, but for the entire state of California. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about the project, about the agreement, or about our energy program in general.
Any questions? One speaker card, Michael Reeves.
Chairman Paris, Power Authority members, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I've reviewed part of and most of the staff report for this proposal, and I have some concerns. It says in the staff report, quote, it is anticipated that the agreement relationship will create substantial positive cash flows of revenue. Another quotation, exact revenue projections will be determined upon execution of an implementation agreement. Another paragraph, partnerships consist of Lancaster Power Authority to sell power on a wholesale basis to other utilities. And another paragraph is I take it that inability to develop financing will, I guess, absolve InStream. And also, quote, time is of the essence. Before we get into any agreement like this, particularly where we're not certain about the revenue projections, I suggest that we find out the revenue projections before we agree to anything. I mean, it's anticipated that this agreement will create substantial positive cash flows of revenue. You cannot manage a city on anticipation. You need to know more specifically what kind of agreement you're getting into. So I think this agreement should go back to the drawing board, and these concerns that I have should be addressed before we approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve the authorization for the executive director to execute the master solar power purchase agreement.
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. Going on to the successor agency,
There's no speaker cards?
we'll hear you want to waive the public hearing? The report?
Yes. I don't.
Okay, then let's hear from David McEwen.
Mayor, members of the council, you have before you a relatively routine action required by the judgment in the case. The judge is requiring that we rescind all of the resolutions applying to that approved the original agreement. And if you recall, we actually did not adopt a resolution approving that agreement. We gave direction to the executive director to execute an agreement, and that agreement was never executed. So we're trying to comply with the terms of the judgment as best we can by simply rescinding that original authorization to the executive director to execute the agreements. And that's the matter before you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
No questions.
This is the Chevrolet deal,
Yes.
the one Palmdale decided to spend millions of dollars suing us
Yes.
and change nothing.
Yes.
It did. It did change a lot. It sued two of our businesses where they had to put out hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect themselves from being sued by the city of Palmdale.
Yeah, it just ended up being a costly expense to some really good businesses here in Lancaster, as well as the cost to the city of Lancaster to defend something that was obviously right on our part.
Well, let me ask the question, what if we didn't rescind it? What action would be taken by the court?
Probably a stiffer order to directing us to do that, and then if you fail to do that, potential contempt.
I've learned it's never a good idea to wave a red flag in front of the court.
Yes.
It took me a good number of years to learn that, but I did learn it. You know, the one thing I do want to point out is that this did cost the taxpayers well over $1 million. And we let people off the hook when we say it's the city of Palmdale. It's not the city of Palmdale. It's a couple members of their council that caused this. It was poorly planned. It was poorly thought out. Or maybe not. Maybe it was just a deliberate attempt to harass our businesses and cause them to spend an inordinate amount of money, and absolutely nothing changed, which is exactly what we said was going to happen when they first raised the issue. You know, at some point, do we start firing back? I mean, do we start making up lawsuits like they do? I mean, what do we do to make them stop? To start behaving responsibly and try to protect the interests of their citizens instead of their own personal agendas. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that we certainly shouldn't hesitate to call it when it happens. And this is clearly what happened. They cost our businesses hundreds of thousands of dollars just because they could, and for no other reason. And at some point, we're going to have to develop an action plan to put an end to it. We all ought to start thinking about it, because if we don't, it's just going to happen again. There's a point where jealousies over our success should give way to mature, rational thinking, and we've yet to see that happen. Anything else? Should we move on? Thank you. All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move that we approve the Successor agencies NB1.
I'll second that.
With one abstention, since I wasn't there. Anything to remove on the consent calendar?
No, sir.
Any speaker cards?
No speaker cards on M1?
No. We already did them. M1 was the minutes.
We just did
No.
SA and B1.
We just did
Now we're on M1.
We just voted on the
Rescind.
Chevrolet.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. I got ahead of myself, didn't I? All right. Now is there a motion to amend the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second that. Mr. Mayor, would you like to go back and vote on NB1?
No, I'll leave it alone.
Okay.
On the consent calendar.
Okay. Now on the consent calendar, we have, let's remove item 14. Is there a motion to approve everything but item 14? We got a speaker card on 14.
No, but we're not removing the name or remember. We're just keeping it as, unless one of the council members wants to remove it, not because he's speaking.
That's right.
Yeah, let him speak on it, and we'll take the whole count as a consent.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Reeves, you're speaking on item 14.
Mayor Caparas, council, staff, ladies and gentlemen. I have a few questions about CC 14. I noticed that on the other CCs, if you noticed on the agenda, you've listed the people that are running it or have something to do with it. On CC 14, I have no idea who this involves. And the reason I'm concerned is because that's my neighborhood. And thanks to the city, we've improved the neighborhood at J and 15th Street West with a new Rite Aid drugstore. And I anticipate maybe more work will be done across from the hospital. But all I see on the agenda is this map, and it just says project site and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not good with maps. And I'd like CC 14 to be pulled and a little more information put down that what's it's about. Is it the hospital or is it a commercial venture or what? Thank you.
I agree. I want that pulled. Let's put it on next meeting if we can do that, okay? Any problem with that? All right. Everything but CC 14, is there a motion?
I'll move that we adopt the consent calendar as currently comprised.
Second.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. City Attorney, new business item 1.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this item is to repeal Ordinance 934, which added Chapter 5.50 to the Lancaster Municipal Code dealing with the E-Verify. And it's the action of repealing it is to bring our code into consistency with state law, which was recently amended to prohibit the use of the E-Verify or to require it in any connection with respect to business licenses or contracts. So it's simply to comply with state law.
Thank you. Any discussion?
After the speaker.
After the speaker card. Mr. Tydell? Is with the ABT party, is that right?
Tea Party.
Right.
You know, still.
I just thought I'd give you a plug.
I'm sorry?
I just thought I'd give you a plug.
Thanks. Mayor, council members, I'm going to read this because it's the only way I'll get it in. Doesn't seem that long ago that back in July 2010, I stood at this very spot encouraging the mayor and the city council to offer an affirmative vote to pass Resolution 1054, which it did by a 4-0 vote. That proclaimed Lancaster a rural law city. This, along with Ordinance 934, which for all intents and purposes is on the chopping block today, made up a strong message that Lancaster would not be a sanctuary city. With the exception of Sandra Johnson, now present, Sherry Marquez gone, the participants remain the same, and yet the last vote on February 14th to repeal this ordinance ended in a 2-2 deadlock, which raises questions in my mind. In 2010, Councilman Mann offered a compelling statement that his wife, who was Hispanic, has a family that paid the price and came here illegally. And though he embraces his wife's culture, it does not make it right when people come here illegally. And he went on to state that he had no mixed feelings about this. I find it confusing that he would now vote against keeping the resolution and existing ordinance intact. Much of the current ordinance would still apply with the exception of private sector employees would not be mandated to use E-Verify, which is the language used in the bill passed by the state, AB 1236. I, along with other council members, believe the state is wrong on this one, and their bill may be moot sooner than later. The federal law, which has always been voluntary for private sector, is due to expire September of this year. There is already a House bill, H.R. 2164, which would make it mandatory to use E-Verify. In spite of the fuzzy math and claims made by some in the state legislature, it may be interesting to note that in January, USCIS reported that more than 243,000 employers used E-Verify. On average, 1,000 new employers enroll each week. Not bad for an involuntary program. Perhaps as symbolic as some may thought Resolution 1054 was, there may be those that think the repeal of 934 is just as symbolic in an effort to garner votes. What is the message being sent by repealing the ordinance? That in 6 months could be a viable and enforceable law? Ordinance 934 and Resolution 1054 spoke loud and clear that we are a rule of law city. I urge all not to repeal the ordinance number 934.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we clarify some things that was said a little over 2 years ago. First of all, my wife's parents are not here illegal, so I don't know where you picked that up, but I don't believe I said that. So I wanted to clarify that they're here legally in the United States. I did go on to say that as a business consultant in the restaurant industry, it is still my position, even though that the state has rescinded or made it difficult for us to be able to keep this law on the books and enforcing, but it's still my position to recommend to restaurant owners in California that I consult with as best practices to use E-Verify, because unfortunately the federal government does enforce the law, and I've seen historically in my 42-year career of raids in the restaurant industry by the feds and then having restaurant owners pay heavy fines. So we can talk semantics all day long. It's unfortunate that the state took this position. And I just wanted to clarify for the record my position. So again, this vote is just purely symbolic as far as I'm concerned. I'll continue to recommend to restaurant owners specifically to continue to use E-Verify. And I think just most recent, I think we were on Hispanic radio, and that came up as a question, and I answered it then. That the question came up about the vote, the 2-2 split vote, and I don't think I have anything else to say on my part.
I have a couple things. For the city attorney, are you ready?
Ready.
Can we give some type of benefit to different business owners that utilizes E-Verify, like in contracts, in bids? If it's not against the state law, if we can we give them a benefit?
There may be something that we can do as an incentive in terms of whether if they use E-Verify, that they would get some benefit in the bidding process. I think we need to do a little more work on that to flesh that out a little bit, to make sure that we're not missing some provision that would otherwise stop us from doing that for another reason completely. But under this law, it doesn't seem that, since it would be a voluntary step on their part, that it may work. The law, what the law prohibits is us requiring a private company from using E-Verify as a condition of obtaining a government contract or obtaining a business license or otherwise complying with the governmental program. So we need to look at it carefully and analyze it carefully to make sure that we can do that. But that might have some possible
Could we do that?
benefit, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we might be able to do it, and I can come back at a future meeting with a report.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a comment, Mr. Mayor. This is the, when we initiated this, it was to, do our part of what we needed to make sure that people are following the law the way they're supposed to when it comes to illegal aliens working in our community. And I think just because, the legislature has this illegal or this illogical law that they passed that makes Big Brother put an onus on Little Brother of not doing what we think is responsible for the community, I don't think that we should repeal it now, but like it was said, there might be some things in the works that can actually overturn it. We should keep it on the books or maybe modify it where it can work. But you have to remember, this is the same state legislature that just got done passing giving our taxpayer dollars as scholarships to illegal aliens. So, I mean, they have their own agenda of what they're doing, but I think we should stand fast, and doesn't necessarily mean that we can enforce it at this time, but maybe we can keep it on the books and look at it in the future.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, I do. I think that one of the things that I'd like to share is that, as we know, my family came from another country, from Chile, and we worked very hard to come here. We're very proud to say that we did come here legally, and I think that's definitely what I support is to make sure that we are all here legally working and that our tax dollars are being respected. But we also have to follow the law, whatever that may be, whether it be at the state level or federal level. But I think if we can become creative, Mr. McCune, as Marv was saying, some way where we could keep an eye on this would be amazing. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good. It strikes me as ironic that we would be debating whether or not undocumented workers should follow the law when we're unwilling to follow the law, which is the state law, which tells us to repeal this. We either follow it or we don't. And if for no other reason, I would vote to repeal it based on that. I am becoming increasingly concerned about a division that seems to be occurring in the country and in the city. And that is of picking out groups to blame our problems on. And I don't think that anybody in this room is doing that, but I think that there are fringe elements that attach themselves to issues like this and are tending to do that. My own religious beliefs are that we welcome people, we support people, we don't do this. Although initially I voted for it because I do think it's an employer problem, and we shouldn't be taking it out on the employees that are trying to take care. They're essentially just hardworking families trying to take care of their family, and they're the last people we should be causing difficulties with. I do think we should look at other avenues in regards to making certain that the preference for employment goes to citizens. After that, I think that whoever wants the job should get it. I mean, we're delusional if we think that people are going to go back to their original countries. It's not going to happen. I mean, why are we acting like it is? All we do is further our own crime problems and our own other problems by making believe that that's going to occur, because we don't even have the rail transportation to do it if we wanted to. We're talking 12 million people. Are we really going to put 12 million people on trains? I mean, why don't we start looking at the reality of things instead of the fantasy people are trying to promote? As you can tell, I've been thinking about this. But with that, I think we should follow the state law and repeal it. Let's vote. Oh, is there a motion?
I'll move that we repeal ordinance number 934 and chapter 5.5 of the 5.50 of the Lancaster Municipal Code.
I'll second it.
And introduce ordinance number 975.
I'll second it. It's 3-2. I also want to start working on repealing the rule of law city we supported, the Arizona law. So, City Attorney, in your spare time, as soon as you can get that before us, I want to deal with that issue too. Although I see both sides of it, I just think it's wrong. All right, moving on. New business 2. We got one speaker card. Who's doing the staff report? Mr. Bozigian?
Sorry. Brenda Gamlowski will do the staff report.
We're scoring you. I want you to know that.
You are. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Before you is the amended and restated JPA agreement with AVTA for your consideration. In 1992, the City of Lancaster, City of Palmdale, and Los Angeles County entered into a Joint Powers Authority agreement establishing the Antelope Valley Transit Authority as the public transportation agency for the area. In order to amend that agreement, the agreement must come back to the jurisdiction's legislative bodies for approval. So it's before you this evening. I'd like to point out some of the changes that were made in the agreement. So the first original agreement did not designate the member jurisdiction whose statutory mode applies to the AVTA. The amended agreement designates the City of Lancaster as that statutory mode and is in compliance with state law. Another amendment removes the executive director's spending limit authority from the JPA agreement. It provides that it shall be stipulated in the AVTA's bylaws instead, which gives the authority to make the adjustments to that limit to the board of directors of the AVTA without having to come back to each jurisdiction for approval. That will help the executive director in her efforts to have continuous service and not have interruptions and have to wait to come back to the legislative bodies. Finally, the amended agreement also removes the provision requiring each jurisdiction to be financially and operationally responsible for the bus stop signage. The new provision in the JPA allows for the AVTA to negotiate MOUs with each jurisdiction for not only bus stop signages, but also the parking areas for transit vehicles and also tree trimming services. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? Okay, everybody write down their score. We'll give them to you at the end of the meeting.
Question. Yes, question. What's the spending limit on the executive director now?
It's currently 5,000.
5,000.
Right, and they maintain all the buses.
And they want it to be able to be changed on the fly with the board rather than with going back to the different agencies. But we're still on the hook for whatever it changes to, correct?
Correct.
Actually, the JPA agreement is 5,000, and the bylaws state it's 25,000.
Right.
So they'd be limited to the 25?
That's correct.
Which would be, but then from then on, it could be increased with just a majority vote of the board, correct?
That's correct.
Which we only have 2 votes on.
That's correct.
Well, we've seen how that works.
And we'd be on the hook for it. I myself, I really don't like being on the hook for another agency, you know, as we've seen with the sanitation districts and everything else, is where we don't have a majority of the vote, that somebody else is deciding how much money, because we saw what happened to the agency last time, you know, and even though we disagree with it, and they could make it 150,000. They could do whatever they want, as long as they have enough votes. So I don't know if I really agree with that particular change.
We could remove ourselves at that point.
Well, I don't necessarily think we want to remove ourselves either, because we've got TD Article 8 money.
The reason that we did it, because sometimes they have to put new bus engines in, and the bus engines, we only have a board meeting once every month. So they don't have the ability that bus sits there for an entire month without board approval. So it needs to be up around 25,000 so they can approve. And the authority to do it is only, it comes back to the board for approval.
Right,
So,
it's the authorization of over that limit. I know when I was on the board one time, we were talking about that they had to have some engines put in, maybe in the future, and we gave them pre-authorization for so many engines so that she could, or he could do it on the fly. But I still feel uncomfortable at giving votes to other people spending our money. It just, I don't, okay.
I'd like to chime in here. Again, the thought process was it was more of an administrative issue of, having buses out of service and then you're making it difficult for the transit authority to operate. So, I can't speak for Mr. Kress, but I thought it was just a matter of dealing with an administration so that we don't kind of bog down the agency. So, maybe we needed to, table it, discuss it. But obviously, too, here's one's really funny. And obviously, I'm only a recent member of the AVTA, but, here it is, the agency director that has stumbled on the fact that we hadn't had an agreement. Either of the two cities had an agreement that had been updated in over, 6 or 8 years. And so in reality, we were actually operating inconsistent with the 3 jurisdictions because of the fact that it was by, I think, the bylaws. And again, I'm doing this off the top of my head because I didn't scribble a bunch of notes. I know that in the last year and a half that there's been a kind of a rat's nest that got opened up, and we found that where an agency director was remiss in many different areas, but this is
He was
just
stealing
one
us
more.
blind.
Yeah.
For heaven's sakes, say
Okay.
what it is.
Stealing is blind. How's that one?
Thank you.
So this is just one more of those administrative functions where we're doing some housekeeping. So I don't know. Again, my position is we were just doing some housekeeping from an administrative standpoint so that we didn't bog down the transit authority.
I don't think it's a secret that we're not all warm and fuzzy with the leadership in Palmdale. In fact, without casting any aspersions on anybody, there's not a whole lot of trust. Why would we trust somebody we don't trust? I think the vice mayor has a point. What do you think, Marvin?
I think we fought for a lot. Mr. Bozikin, what is your spending limit?
125.
And we look. Yes.
But I trust him.
I understand that. We
I have
looked
a
at
single
that,
group that's my brand.
and then we lowered it to the one exception where it is. There's a lot of funding. There's millions of dollars that do go into the transit agency. We have been able to go in there, and they're going to follow the contract of Lancaster. Councilman Marquez was instrumental in putting that in, and so the county follows us. I do have total trust in the people from the county, so there is 4 votes that we have on it. So I'm perfectly clear as far as the 25,000 is. It's a good number. It's not anything dangerous for a budget.
No, and I agree the 25,000 is a good number. It's changing the specificity of how that gets raised from the agencies of the JPA voting on it to the agency itself from the bylaws. That's what I disagree with. I think making it 25 or 50,000 would probably be appropriate, but I just don't. I think that we should still have control over the taxpayers' money that we're dealing out. That's just my own opinion on it. So it's not. I agree with you. 25,000 is a good number, but not giving them the vote from then on. And even though I trust the county, sometimes things go royal.
Well, can we? What do you think of amending it so that they can't raise it with the bylaws? That 25 is the absolute cap without a vote of this council.
Well, to show you how long this takes, we actually voted on this on July of last year to raise it. So it's taken a year just to get to this point where it's brought before this council. So.
Well, maybe that's why it costs so much money to run that place. It takes them a year to make a decision.
No, I think that you're speaking about historically. We're actually in pretty good shape right now.
Well, the AVTA is in better shape than it's ever been. I mean, with the management that's over there now, it's in exceptionally good shape. I think that we've rooted everything out. We've looked at everything. We shaking the trees as best we can shake them, and I think this is as good as it's going to get. I'm certain that the city of Palmdale is not going to like following the contract of Lancaster as its jurisdiction. And
yeah, I can understand Mayor Paris and Vice Mayor Smith. I mean, trust me, when I showed up there, and I'm not trying to air dirty laundry again publicly, but when I showed up there, I was taken back. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
It is our job to air dirty laundry
Okay,
publicly.
so-
That is why we're here.
Okay, so I'll repeat myself then. Let me restate what I said. I was appalled by the nonsense that had gone on in that agency until Mr. Christ and Ms. Marquez uncovered all the stuff that they uncovered. So, I mean, I just couldn't believe that an agency had run that way. I feel pretty confident now things are in place where, as to Councilman Christ has said, I feel pretty comfortable. Now, whether you're still uncomfortable with it, again, I can understand that. I mean, it was kind of nuts a year and a half, 2 years ago.
If we do this, is it in perpetuity, or is there a, I mean, can't we put a cap on it, like to be revisited in 5 years, or?
In the spending limit or the JPA itself?
The spending limit. My thinking is, I mean, the reason I have these people on the JPA is to run it. If that's what they want to do, I'll trust their judgment. But I don't want to put us into something that is forever, that we can't revisit.
I don't have a problem if you want to put
Yeah, maybe we had
put a limit on it and go back to the board and say that, to this limit.
Yeah.
But I think 25,000 say.
That would be, and also if it's like it is here, you can only approve it if it's already in the budget that would be adopted by the board itself, so you might put that as a condition as well, too.
All right.
That
would solve the problem.
Right, but Mr. Mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but even if we put a cap on it, it still has to come back for a vote of the 3 cities and the jurisdictions, because it's not our ordinance, it's actually theirs. So if we give them the power of the bylaw change, the agency would have to come back with us, and I know it takes a long time to get this JPA agreement back, because when I was on there, I was trying to get it back, and it took 6 years, and now we're finally seeing it. So it takes a long time.
Well, why don't we fire the people that take 6 years to do something?
We already did.
Yeah.
That's why it only takes
All
a
right,
year
why
now.
don't we give them direction to return this to us in 60 days to vote on? And if they want 125,000, whatever the limit is, just so long as it stays at the limit, okay?
Okay.
But direct them. They got 60 days to bring it back to us. And if they don't have it back to us in 60 days, let's figure out how to replace some people. I mean, this is nonsense, waiting years to do things that, any other private business would do in 2 weeks. Does that work for you?
It works for
me.
me.
Just table it for 60 days?
Yeah.
We'll table it and go back and
discuss.
Yeah, I don't
and
think.
What are you guys comfortable with?
Yeah.
As far as an amount?
I just want a cap. I don't care really what it is.
Okay. All right.
And as long as that cap can't be changed by the bylaws.
Okay.
Because that's the key.
Yeah,
right,
that's
the key right there.
Right, that's the one that's your sticky point. All right,
So it
we'll go
gives them
back
the
and
flexibility.
But
Right.
trust me, Mayor Paris, I think the help, the staff there is competent. A big difference.
Good. Okay. I guess we'll see in 60 days, won't we? Okay. We have the Lancaster Housing Authority. I'm going to nominate Marvin Christ as chairman of the Housing Authority.
Second that.
What? Okay.
Do you have an objection?
Okay, withdraw the second.
Well, I haven't. I
We can go forward.
understand that you've had some health problems, but I haven't had time to talk with you in this. My plate's full. I have the AVTA, the AVA-QMD, the FAIR JPA, the RAP, all the different ones that I'm on, and I think it would be better if we nominated, someone else to chair this. I think it would
You're
be.
declining, I take it.
Well, I just think it would be, it takes a lot. I think with the Section 8, it's going to take a lot of,
Let me just, maybe I'm confused here. The Housing Authority is the agency that we've been governing right now, and we're giving it over to other people that are probably going to just sit up here, and we're going to do it at the same time at the council meeting. It is not the commission that we created correct?
The Housing Authority is the 5 members that sit
up here.
Ms. Zetto.
So it's not a separate meeting, it's the council meeting time.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. I'll nominate Kitty Zato. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Let's vote. It's unanimous. So Kitty, you're the chair. Okay, moving on. Oh, it's still me. Can we do something about our cell phone service? I mean, every country I go to, I can be 500 miles from civilization, and I get better cell service there than I do in Lancaster. What do we do to make these people pay attention?
If I knew, I'd know, which I wouldn't be with the carrier I'm with now. But I do. Mayor and I have talked about this. He's right, and we share the same carrier. What we have done is there's 56 cell towers in the city of Lancaster now. We try to actively work to co-locate the different carriers on the same cell so there's not visual pollution. What we can do is engage the 3 or 4 folks that we're working with with the goal of make our cell service better, because there are parts of this city it is atrocious, and it's a problem shared by the whole Antelope Valley, to be real honest.
Really? I thought it was just when I drove into Palmdale they shut my cell phone service off.
Actually, if you're on the 14 freeway, it's a Palmdale Bulge. The 14 freeway Palmdale Bulge, they do shut it off. No one can get cell phone service there.
That wasn't a conspiracy, huh? Oh. All right. I would really like a plan in place in the next 60 days as to approaching these companies and, see if we can do it nicely. And if we can't do it nicely, let's, raise some noise, all right? But it's deplorable. It's not like it's new science or new technology. It's just they don't want to invest the money in the city because they don't have to. Well, let's make them have to do it. Okay? Thank you. Council reports. Mr. Christ and Mr. Mann.
AVTA, we're changing a couple of the routes. We're changing Route 1 to a Route 10. We've changed our paratransit service from a dial-a-ride program to a ACL. So, in other words, it's specific. So it's 98% on time. Let's see. We have a bus stop improvement program that we're working not only in the city of Lancaster but in the city of Palmdale. We're purchasing some new buses. We're working on the new budget for the year. We were working on, and hopefully that the budget was going to save us some money because of the gas was at $4. Now it's getting close to $5, which was at our budget. We have a new advertising policy that the buses are now going to advertise. We are going to look at Assemblyman Knight having a digital bus advertising on the back. Each jurisdiction will receive 5% of the advertising allotment, with AVTA receiving 5%, and we can give that to different charitable organizations or any event that we sponsor. So we'll be able to sponsor stuff like the Board of Trade. We'll be able to sponsor stuff like Thunder on the Lot. We'll be able to sponsor American Cancer Society's Relay for Life and put it on the buses through a digital approach. So the city will have some advertising to help support the nonprofits throughout the community. And that's about it.
Thank you. You have something on the sanitation district?
Yeah, it didn't get on the agenda. I just noticed it now. But, yeah, we met, and most everything was perfunctory. But as you remember, we were having a problem with restaurants being basically paying exorbitant taxes on their sanitation bills. I mean, some of the restaurants went from $2,000 to $13,000 a year. And they were, as Mr. Mann knows, they were basing this on a 1978 report. So I had moved that we go out there and do another study and find out what is the equitable amount that they should be paying based on what they're doing now. Because, as you know, we started the FOG program and other things like that. So they came back with the report, and now those restaurants are going to get their taxes lowered by 33%.
Good.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So I think we ought to applaud
Wonderful.
Mr. Smith here.
A lot of people.
We probably had at least 15 restaurant operators show up at the last meeting where they did a presentation, and they were all left the room happy. So,
yeah. So I mean, it's what was fair, but like a typical bureaucracy, I mean, they're going on 78 year no report. But as a good note, if any of you want to on the council and any of our staff. It looks like we're going to be giving a tour of that monstrosity plant that we're saddled with over there on off of the 14 freeway, so you can go and see what your hundreds of millions of dollars are going for. And that's going to be on the 22nd. Then we're going to have a sanitation district meeting. I think it's the 22nd. Is it 22nd, Jerry? Or who's? I don't know who's. We don't have a staff member here. I think it's Thursday the 22nd is what they're looking at. So we'll be doing a tour, but we'll get everybody notified when they get the meeting settled.
Ron was being generous when he talked about 2,000 to 12,000. As an example, there was at least 4 restaurant owners that were in that room a month ago, and their annual sanitation bill was in the excess of $30,000. So when you see a 33% reduction, that's almost $1,000 a month savings that they're going to be a benefactor of. So they walked away there pretty happy. So I don't want you to think that there wasn't too many bills that I saw in the $2,000 to $3,000 or $4,000 range.
So that was like 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. Most of them were in the excess of 12 to, again, it ranged from 12 to the highest bill. Marie Callender's was paying just short of $36,000 a year.
So does this mean we get a cheaper salad bar at Marie Callender's?
I don't know. We'll have to.
No, they're not going to close like the other ones. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's it for me on that.
All right. Thank you. City Manager, any announcements?
Just one announcement. Today, I know that early on, it was very important to Mayor Paris in particular, and I know the council supported, to the Hometown Heroes banner program on the boulevard. And we have 52 banners up there now honoring those that serve for this community in this valley and serve for our country. And 9 of those folks died in service to their country, and we honor them today. It was a very moving event. I think the Hometown Heroes Banner program has exceeded everyone's expectations. It's just been phenomenal in the pride and patriotism it shows of this community. So I thank Mayor Paris and the council for really pushing that program. Also like to mention we had a lot of staff work on it, but I'd like to sort of talk about 4 staff that really put their hearts and souls into it and led us, and that would be Brian Bailey, Luke Duncan, Nicole Allen, and Nicole Nutt. They did a phenomenal job, along with the rest of the staff, putting that together. It's a very touching event, and the banner program is just phenomenal.
Did you have a film you wanted to show?
I think it might be most appropriate just before it's pretty emotional, before we adjourn.
Okay, fine. Let's do the city clerk.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time for you to address the City Council on
I think it just showed him how important it is to be responsible, to show someone you care, to say I love you. So you just hug a little more and you step out of your comfort zone and you show where that real importance is, the importance of family.
John's non-commissioned officer. And he had a wonderful dream a year ago in January, and it was about John and Jet, John's best friend, were talking on the sidewalk, and Jet had just hugged him, and Adam, his NCO, comes out and says, "Where are you going?" "Oh, you can't let him go." And John walked around laughing and says, "You can let me go now. I'm okay." He says, "I can't wait to have you join me here." Gave him a hug, said goodbye, and left. I've had a lot of guys tell me they were proud to call him Doc.
I have 2 people that work with me right now that knew him, and they said he was such a great guy. Anything he did, he put 110%. It didn't matter if he liked it or got tired or sick, he always put 110 no matter what. He knew what was important, and he knew what was that was his responsibility, and he had to take care of his family, and he enjoyed life. I mean, he got along with everybody.
He liked people.
He was very friendly. He treated everybody the same.
He would come in to visit us. First thing he'd do is look in the refrigerator and see if there's anything he wanted to eat. He always found something, and he'd sit around and talk, and he gave us hugs and I love yous and laughed.
He always had a very generous spirit. That kind of thing becomes intensified in the right environments. That was the right environment. It was a growth process, and it was a good growth process. It's about being alive. It's about doing your best. It's about having an adversity and then overcoming it. He was just a big, bright, fun kid.
And a lot of the younger Marines would get picked on. Some of the Marines afterwards, they tell us, Joey used to always take care of me.
He cared, but just to say hi, you know what I mean? And you got to do what you want to do, you know what I mean? Like, no matter what it is.
That's what I think about, not the tough Marine, but my son. I think of the young man with the heart.
Yeah, he graduated on a Wednesday and he went to basic training on a Sunday. 9/11 had not happened when he graduated. We did have a conversation in the fall of 2000, before he signed, with a recruiter, and we said, we're not at war now. But that could change. And if that changes, you might have to go to battle, and it might end up that you might die. Is that something that you are willing to give your life for? And he said yes. So we are very, very thankful.
Thank you. We're going to recess to closed session. We'll be back.
Into order. The mayor is absent, and I'm chairing the committee now. Mr. McEwen, could you make an announcement, and then I'll elaborate?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the council did meet in closed session under Government Code Section 54956.9 A with respect to existing litigation. There are, bear with me one second. The item that we discussed was the second on the list of the closed session items. We did not have any discussions on any of the other listed cases, solely on the CSC NAACP versus Lancaster was a case that was discussed and direction was given in connection with that.
And we took a vote on what I'm going to discuss now, and it was unanimous, correct? Okay. I'm going to announce now that the City of Lancaster is filing a complaint with the federal HUD agency, and this complaint is against the County of Los Angeles Housing Authority and also the County of Los Angeles. And to be specific, the following discriminatory practices are alleged to have occurred or will likely to occur by them: discriminatory refusal to rent, racial steering, otherwise deny or make housing available, and discriminatory provision of services or facilities in connection with the rental of a dwelling. At this time, is there any other comments from the council? Anything else from staff? That being the case, we are going to adjourn tonight's meeting. In the past 2 months, we've had 2 Quartz Hill High School students and 1 Paraclete High School student that have lost their lives in auto accidents, taken so young. And this is Kyle Brooks, Tyler Lynch, and Leonard Rohaley II. So we adjourn this meeting now until Tuesday, March 27th, 2012. Thank you.